Time passed much faster than we imagined, but now everyone is able to heal their emotional wounds simply with the passage of time. I am going to speak honestly about everything, about the happiness I experienced in 2023, about despair that led me into depression in 2024, and about the physical problems that followed. It's not simply a matter of whether I want to talk about these things or not. I feel that unless I tell the whole story, I will not be able to truly communicate what happened to me. This is my story, and it is also a story about recovery. To be honest, this video is not intended to be a story about how unfortunate my life has been. More than anything, it is meant to represent the hope that can be found through recovery. It is also not intended to criticize or blame anyone. No matter who they are, I sincerely hope that everyone who has ever been part of my life is smiling somewhere, even in a place that I know nothing about. In July 2026, I finally decided to make this video. For me, making it represents a new beginning. I decided that I had recovered enough emotionally to restart my life and my work. But why did I need to restart in the first place? Because I had been deeply hurt. The beginning of that damage can be traced back to the end of my engagement in 2024. Before I continue, I want to make one thing very clear. If ending our relationship meant that she could become happier, I had no hesitation about letting her go. I am not saying that to sound strong. I can honestly say that if she could live a happier life with someone other than me, then that would be the best possible outcome for her. And the truth is, I believe she is happier that way. Before that relationship, I had never been someone who stayed in relationships for very long. The relationships I experienced during my student years did not give me a great deal of experience or deep understanding of love. I was extremely poor. More than anything, I spent almost every day studying because I was focused on achieving my goals. I rarely allowed myself to concentrate on romance. I mostly studied. Some people seem to assume that I am not academically inclined, or that I'm not particularly intelligent, but I can confidently say this. I have studied far more than the average person. In fact, I graduated from the Graduate School of Waseda University, one of Japan's most well-known universities. Whether that education has been useful in my present life, I honestly do not know. But those years gave me many important experiences and memories that helped shape the person I am today. Before I began dating my former fiancé, none of my previous relationships had lasted longer than a year. Most of those relationships ended because I wanted to focus on something else, such as studying or pursuing another goal. In many cases, there was no dramatic reason for the breakup. At that time in my life, I simply had other things that I wanted to devote myself to. Before my relationship with my former fiancé began, I was going through a period in which I was seriously re-evaluating my entire life. I was constantly searching for a reason to live. I made a decision. I would try to do what I truly wanted to do. And if I tried and failed, I believed that my life would no longer have any meaning. At that time, COVID-19 was spreading across the world. Many people were losing hope. But strangely, during that period, I found hope in something I had always wanted to do. I decided that I wanted to become a creator. I had almost no income. I spent nearly all of my money on cameras and equipment. I helped at my mother's business. I gradually sold belongings I owned. And somehow I continued creating and posting content on Instagram and YouTube. Did I have any real reason to believe that my future would be successful? Probably not. It was an extremely high-risk path. The possibility of success may have been close to zero. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt that I was genuinely having fun. That feeling was more important to me than anything else. One day, a birthday notification for an old friend appeared on my phone. I sent her a simple message wishing her a happy birthday. That message eventually led to the beginning of relationships with a woman who later became my fiancée. We experienced many beautiful moments together. At that time, we also faced many difficulties. One of the biggest differences between us was our financial background. I was extremely poor. She, on the other hand, grew up in a family that could probably be described as one of the wealthiest in Japan. But we never lived a luxurious life together. We lived simply. We each used the money we had earned ourselves, and while living modestly, we continued moving forward towards our dreams. That way of life felt comfortable to me. One of my greatest dreams was to travel around the world. I wanted to travel while taking photographs and making videos. I wanted to share the beauty I discovered and the emotion I felt with people across the world. She also had a dream of living abroad one day. Because of that, bringing her overseas became one of my personal goals. I continued working hard to make it possible, and when I finally achieved it, I remember feeling incredibly happy. Our first international trip together was to Taiwan. After that, we traveled to the United States and Canada. Visiting the United States and Canada had also been one of my own dreams. The journey became one of the most meaningful and unforgettable experiences of my life. There were many difficult moments, but I was happy. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to make videos about my time in the United States. I often asked myself why. I think I finally found the answer. That journey meant everything to me. It was one of the greatest dreams I had ever achieved. But at that time, it also became the beginning of losing everything. That is why I couldn't bring myself to revisit those memories. We spent nearly 3 months traveling throughout the United States and Canada. We visited so many incredible places. Some of the memories from that trip are still among the happiest moments of my life. But only 2 days after returning to Japan, our relationship ended. The reason was simple. She had found a new dream, and that dream no longer included a future with me. She loved her time in America even more than I did. She wanted a different future. The moment she told me, I made my decision immediately. I will support you. I never wanted to stand in their way of someone else's happiness. The truth is, our relationship wasn't perfect. We had many challenges. Looking back now, I don't even know if we were truly compatible. I always tried to do everything I could for her, but perhaps I wasn't capable enough. Perhaps I didn't have enough financial stability. Perhaps I wasn't as kind as I believed I was. I still don't know. What I do know is this. I never imagined that our future together would disappear overnight. I had already pictured our life together. Without realizing it, my greatest dream had slowly changed. At first, my dream had been to become a successful creator. But somewhere along the way, my greatest dream became building a future with her. When that dream disappeared, I felt as though my future disappeared with it. I lost my reason to live. As a creator, I had always told people how important it is to have dreams, to have goals, to have hope. Ironically, I became the person who lost all three. I remember thinking how cruel that felt. Every day my heart hurt. Whenever my mind became quiet, tears began to fall without warning. I stopped wanting to do anything, but life didn't stop. I still had expensive rent to pay. I still had work. Before then, I had genuinely loved my job, because creating content wasn't just work. It was part of my dream. But suddenly, none of it was enjoyable anymore. The reason was simple. I no longer knew why I was working. I fell into depression. Everything felt meaningless, yet somewhere deep inside of me, I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I had to find a way to stand up again, but every time I tried, I asked myself the same question: what am I standing up for? And every time I searched for the answer, it hurt even more. The cycle repeated itself over and over again. Eventually, I became exhausted. Around the same time, something else happened. After our breaking up, my former fiancée shared a video about it as a creator herself. That video spread far beyond anything either of us expected. Across all platforms, it has viewed more than 3 million times. Soon after, the messages began. People who had never met me, people who knew nothing about our relationship, started sending me hateful messages. Some demanded that I give her back the 3 years of her life. Others sent threats that honestly frightened me. In total, I received nearly 500 messages. None of them knew the truth. Most of them were simply making assumptions. But that didn't stop the attacks. I wish I could say I ignored them. I couldn't. I read them, one by one. Sometimes with my hands shaking. My chest hurt. My heart hurt. Every message felt like another wound. Eventually, the attention faded. That's what happened on the internet. People move on. The algorithm moves on. The world forgets. But by then, my mind and my body had already been broken. At the time, I hadn't even realized how much damage had been done. The physical symptoms would come later. By then, I had already become emotionally numb. Even though thousands of my followers were sending me kind messages, I couldn't truly feel them anymore. I read them, but instead of comfort, I mostly felt pain. Still, among all those messages, there were people who refused to give up on me. They kept writing to me again and again and again. They wanted me to survive this. They wanted me to recover. Little by little, those people reminded me that perhaps I still had something worth fighting for. So I asked myself one simple question: what do I still have left? The answer surprised me. I still had my dream. I remembered why I had chosen this path in the first place. Long before I fell in love, I had decided to become a creator because I needed a reason to live. That dream had always been there. Somewhere along the way, it had simply been covered by another dream, but it had never disappeared. It was still waiting for me. And perhaps the reason you are watching this video today is because that dream never completely left me. Even after I rediscovered my dream, recovery was anything but easy. Having a dream gives you a direction, but it doesn't instantly heal your heart. I realized that if I wanted to recover, I couldn't stay alone. I needed to meet people. I needed to experience things I had never done before. I needed to keep my mind occupied with something positive. So I started saying yes to new experiences. I also tried something that scared me. I started live streaming on YouTube. At the time, my English wasn't very good. To be honest, the streams probably weren't very entertaining, but that wasn't really the point. The purpose was to connect with people, to reduce the loneliness, to remind myself that I wasn't completely alone. During those live streams, so many people joined. The comments came faster than I could read them. Many viewers supported me through super chats. At the time, I had almost completely lost my appetite. Some days, those messages gave me just enough strength to walk to a convenience store and buy something to eat. Some of the support even helped me replace furniture I had lost after the breakup. Looking back now, I realized that so many people were quietly helped me survive. Because of them, I felt that I couldn't give up. I wanted to recover, not only for myself, but also for everyone who had continued to believe in me. Then one day, I noticed something was wrong with my body. The change had happened so gradually that I hadn't noticed it at first. I had lost an important part of myself as a man. I was suffering from erectile dysfunction. When I was younger, I had heard about ED before. Back then, I remember wondering how something like that could even happen. Maybe I even laughed about it. I never imagined that one day it would happen to me, but it did. The strangest part was that I had absolutely no control over it. It felt as though the connection between my mind and my body had simply disappeared. There was almost no sensation. No matter what I tried, nothing changed. That experience took away something much bigger than physical function. It took away my confidence as a man. Around that time, I was living in Inamuragasaki, Kamakura. It is a quiet place just a few stations away from Kamakura Station on the Enoden line. There is the ocean, beautiful sunset, a peaceful atmosphere. But beyond that, there is almost nothing. Normally, I love places like that. But at the point in my life, the silence became overwhelming. After the breaking up, we also had to end our life together. Living there alone became too painful. So I made a decision to move back to Tokyo. I thought that being surrounded by more people would help stabilize my mental health. Since I was born and raised in Tokyo, it felt like returning to familiar ground. Unfortunately, life had other plans. While searching online for a moving company, I became a victim of a moving scam. Not long afterwards, I developed pneumonia. Everything seemed to go wrong. Still, I tried to stay hopeful. I kept telling myself that if so many bad things were happening, perhaps something good was waiting somewhere ahead. I moved into a garage house near my mother's home. Architecturally, it was a fascinating place. I thought it might even inspire my creativity. I moved there with my cat, Kinta. Our other cat, Monchi, stayed with my former partner. For the first time, they were separated. I think Kinta was deeply confused. After the move, he rarely left my side. Whenever I left the house, he would watch me anxiously. And every time I came home, he cried as though he had been waiting for me the entire day. One day, I realized something. He hadn't simply lost his home, he had lost his family. Watching him broke my heart. At that moment, I made myself a promise. No matter what happened, I would make sure Kinta lived a happy life. Looking back now, Tokyo wasn't what I needed. To be honest, I hated living there. Living alone sounded comfortable. In reality, it wasn't, because it was a garage house. My neighbor's Harley Davidson was often left idling outside. The noise was so loud that I couldn't concentrate on anything. The ceilings were so high that the air conditioning barely worked. Tokyo felt crowded, busy, concrete everywhere, very little nature. Before long, I realized something important. The place I truly loved was Kamakura. The ocean, the mountains, the slower pace of life. For some reason, that was the place where I felt most like myself. After only 3.5 months, I decided to move again, back to Kamakura. Some people worried that moving there would make me even lonelier. After all, I didn't have many friends there, but strangely, I felt that my heart was beginning to heal, slowly, almost without realizing it. After deciding to return to Kamakura, another challenge was waiting for me. I needed to bring home the birds that had been living with my mother. The reason was simple. There was a possibility that my mother would remarry, and she would no longer be able to care of them. Finding a place to live with both cats and birds in Japan is surprisingly difficult. Many apartments allow dogs but not cats. Others allow cats but prohibit birds altogether. And African grey parrots, like mine, are incredibly intelligent, but they are also very loud. Their voices can easily disturb the neighbors. Finding a home that welcomed all of us felt almost impossible, especially in Tokyo. After searching for what felt like forever, I finally found an apartment in Kamakura. To be honest, it was the most expensive home I had ever rented, but I had no other choice. More importantly, I wanted to return. Moving was expensive. Starting over was exhausting, yet somehow I felt excited. For the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the future. This time I chose a place much closer to Kamakura Station. It was livelier than Inamuragasaki. There were more people, more cafes, more opportunity to interact with others. I thought perhaps that would be healthier for me, and I was right. Life there healed me far more than I had expected. I walked along the ocean, I spent time in the mountains, I photographed wildlife. I explored places I had never visited before. I tried restaurants I had always walked past but never entered. Instead of staying inside my apartment thinking about the past, I started becoming curious about the world around me again. I wanted to discover a side of Kamakura I had never known. Little by little, I began to smile more often. But recovery is rarely a straight line. Although my heart was improving, my body still wasn't. The eating hadn't gone away. I still didn't know what to do. There were days when I wondered if it would ever recover. Still, I made another decision. If I couldn't immediately change my situation, I could at least continue challenging myself. So I started saying yes to everything that interested me. One of the first things I did was earn my drone pilot certification. To be honest, I was already capable of flying drones before getting licensed. So did the qualification itself change myself? Probably not, but that wasn't really why I did it. I wanted to prove that I was still capable of moving forward, that I could still learn something new, that I hadn't stopped growing. I've always loved photography from the ground, but drones opened an entirely new perspective. Seeing the world from above reminded me how vast and beautiful it really is. Then another thought crossed my mind. If I could capture the birds from the sky, what about beneath the sea? I had never been scuba diving before, so I decided to try. I traveled to Okinawa and Kagoshima. I learned how to dive, and I quickly discovered something else. Diving is much more expensive than I had expected. Every new experience costs money, sometimes quite a lot of it. But some experiences are worth every yen. The first time I descended beneath the surface, everything became quiet. The noise of the world disappeared. There was only endless blue, fish moving gently through the water, sunlight filtering down from above. For perhaps the first time in years, my mind became completely still. There was nothing to worry about, nothing to regret, nothing to fear, only the present moment. The ocean demanded all of my attention, and in return, it gave me peace. In September 2025, during one of those dives, I remember thinking something very clearly. Life still had so much left to offer. Keep moving forward, keep exploring, keep saying yes to new experiences. It almost felt as though the ocean itself was quietly whispering those words to me. Looking back now, it may have been one of the most beautiful journeys of my entire life, not because of where I went, but because of who I was slowly becoming. Around the same time, I challenged myself in another unexpected way: fashion. For most of my life, I simply wore clothes because I had to. I never thought much about them. Like many Japanese men, I mostly wore black, gray, or other dark colors. I never tried to express my personality through what I wore. It wasn't fashion, it was simply clothing. Toward the end of 2025, I decided to change that. I deliberately stopped buying dark colors. Instead, I chose brighter colors. At first, I felt embarrassed. It didn't feel like me. But every time I walked outside wearing something colorful, something strange happened. My mood became just a little brighter too. It sounds like such a small thing, but sometimes small change create the biggest transformations. Recovery isn't always about dramatic breakthroughs. Sometimes it's simply choosing a brighter color than yesterday. Towards the end of 2024, another challenge appeared. This time, it wasn't something happening in my personal life. It was happening online. Instagram's algorithm had changed. From that point onward, my videos were no longer reaching people the way they once had. Compared to the views I was getting before the algorithm changed, some of my videos now reach only around 10% of that audience, sometimes even less. In some cases, only 5%. For many people, those are just numbers. For me, they represented something much more painful: connection. The thing I valued most as a creator wasn't views, it wasn't money, it wasn't popularity. It was the feeling of being connected to people around the world. Sometimes I would receive messages that said, "This is the first time I've seen one of your posts in almost a year," or "I thought you had stopped creating." Those messages broke my heart. The people hadn't disappeared. The algorithm had simply stopped showing them my work. Around the same time, I lost my relationship. I also felt like I was losing the community that had supported me for years. Every single day, my follower count went down, sometimes by more than 250 people in one day. Over 2 years, I lost more than 100,000 followers. I know that numbers don't define a person, but when your life's work depends on reaching people, watching those numbers for every day is emotionally exhausting. Eventually, I became afraid of Instagram itself. Every time I posted, I became anxious. Every upload felt like another opportunity to fail. But I also knew I couldn't stop creating. So for nearly 2 years, I kept repeating the same cycle. I would gather the courage to upload something, then immediately feel discouraged afterward, again and again and again. It was painful. Still, something inside of me had already begun to change. By continuing to challenge myself, by meeting people, by traveling, by diving, by trying new things, I could feel my mind slowly becoming lighter. But I still wasn't completely myself. The biggest turning point came from somewhere completely unexpected: exercise. For most of my life, I had never been confident about my body. I hated people seeing in it. I always thought I was too skinny. No matter how much I ate, I couldn't gain weight. So I convinced myself that building muscle simply wasn't possible for me. Then in March 2026, I decided to try anyway. The first time I walked into a gym, I couldn't lift much at all. The machines felt impossibly heavy. I remember thinking, maybe this isn't for me. But instead of giving up, I started at home. 30 push-ups every single day. Slowly, I increased the number, little by little. When I returned to the gym later, I was shocked. I had become stronger, not dramatically, but enough to notice. The feelings changed something inside me. I continued training at the gym. I trained at home. I forced myself to eat more. I brought protein, healthy food, supplements. To be honest, I never expected getting stronger to cost so much money, but it was worth every yen. Because for the first time in a long time, I could clearly feel my mental health improving. I realized something important. When you become completely absorbed in something, your mind has less room to be consumed by pain. Not long afterward, another difficult event shocked me again. For about a week, my heart was hurting all over again, but this time I responded differently. Instead of giving in, I started boxing. I started jump rope training. I kept moving. I decided that if my mind wanted to pull me backward, my body would keep moving forward. Every morning, I woke up at 5. I went outside. I trained, sometimes alone, sometimes with my friend. Those mornings slowly became something I looked forward to. One day, I realized something. I had recovered, not because life had become perfect, not because the painful memories had disappeared, but because I had become strong enough to carry them. That was the moment I knew I was ready to return. I finally announced my comeback on Instagram. More than 1,000 people welcomed me back in the comments. So many people simply wrote, "Welcome back." I still don't know whether my videos will ever perform like they once did. Maybe they won't. Maybe I will never regain the audience I had before, but that's okay, because I realized something. The people who truly wanted to stay were still there. That meant more to me than any algorithm ever could. For a long time, I wasn't mentally ready to upload videos to YouTube again, but now I'm back. Because when I first dreamed of becoming a creator, YouTube was always where I wanted to inspire people. It was never just about becoming famous. It was about giving people hope. And if I continue running away from YouTube, I felt like I would be running away from my original dream. People often ask me how I'm doing now. Mentally, I can honestly say I've recovered. Physically, I'm still healing. Compared to where I started, I think I'm about 60% recovered, but I believe I'll get there as long as I continue taking care of myself, because that's the biggest lesson I've learned for most of my life. I always put other people first. I rarely express my own feelings. I convinced myself that making someone else happy was enough, but I was wrong. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't truly take care of anyone else. If you want to protect someone, you have to become strong first. Today, I still wish happiness for everyone, including the people who are no longer part of my life. But now, I also choose to pursue my own happiness. This video tells the story of my journey from 2024 to 2026. A journey through heartbreak, depression, fear, recovery, and hope. From now on, I want to keep moving forward. I want to keep sharing my thoughts, my creativity, and the person I truly am, here on YouTube. So if you'd like to continue this journey with me, I'd be incredibly grateful for your support. Finally, to everyone who stayed subscribed to my channel membership for nearly a year while I wasn't uploading, I'm truly sorry, and thank you. To everyone for patiently waited for my return, thank you. I wasn't emotionally ready to tell this story until now, but today, I finally am. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening, and thank you for walking this journey with me.